Hey, what's up everybody? Welcome back to another mental health breakdown. This is a new segment that we're starting on this channel where we look at some of the news related to mental health from this previous week and we round it up and break it down for you all. Today we are discussing 3 different stories. One about Emma Stone and the struggles that she had with anxiety and how she copes with it now as a very successful actress. 2, a new feature from the Oura Ring about measuring resilience. And finally, 988 call centers that are grossly underserving their employees. As always, like and subscribe so you can stay up to date with the content. Make sure you don't miss any of these breakdowns. Let's dive into it. So the first story we're diving into today and breaking down is this story that came out a couple of days ago about Emma Stone, and she opened up about her childhood struggles with anxiety and panic attacks. She said she had started in therapy around age 8, was working to cope with panic attacks and anxiety in particular. So one of the things that she said in this interview was that it's a hard age to be able to reason with yourself at 7 or 8 and tell yourself these things aren't true. So yeah, panic attacks and anxiety, a lot of thoughts spiraling out of control, a lot of worries that you might, within a CBT mindset, try to tell yourself these aren't rational, I don't need to worry about this stuff. But again, at 7 or 8, or even at age 70 or 80, it's hard to convince yourself when you have anxiety that the things that you're worried about are not actually things you have to worry about. And what I really appreciate about the story is that she said when she started acting at age 11, that actually became more than just an outlet, but an advantage for her. She said that all of her big feelings are productive, and especially in a stage presence, I can see how that makes sense. Having big feelings and being able to translate that into your presence on stage, that could be an invaluable benefit. And finally, she said, I've told a lot of younger people that struggle with anxiety that in many ways I see it as a kind of superpower. She said anxiety is like rocket fuel because you can't help but get out of bed and do things because you've got all this energy within you, and that's really a gift. Wow, you talk about a powerful reframe. Absolutely. I have so many clients who struggle with anxiety, and I'm glad that she's advocating from her experience how at an early age she struggled with panic and anxiety and how that seemed like such a crippling thing for her. But then when she discovered acting and how she found all of that energy going to something productive and positive for her, that it became a tool that absolutely, I'm sure she still has bad days no matter how successful she is now, but that it became something that became an energy and a fuel for her to be able to be productive, to be able to do the things that she needed in order to be as successful as she is now. And so this whole concept is a very CBT kind of deal where you are taking something that you feel like is bad or you're telling yourself is bad, this anxiety, this worry, it just gets in the way, and put in a different context or reframed in a certain way, it actually becomes an advantage that maybe set her apart from other actresses and actors who were around her age. So yes, context matters, and also being able to tell yourself that whatever diagnoses or struggles we might have don't have to be good or bad, they're just what they are, and we can harness them towards something that is positive and can be good for us. So let me jump over to talking about the Oura Ring. So this is a ring that functions similarly to, I guess, a Fitbit or something like that. It's a fitness tracker. I do remember back in 2020 when COVID was going really strong, the NBA, when they played in the bubble in Disneyland, that they actually had players wearing Oura rings that would track certain fluctuations, I guess, in temperature or something about their biometrics that would let people know that they were starting to get infected with something. It didn't have to be COVID, but that was an early marker for someone needing to be quarantined, and that helped the bubble be successful for the NBA. So Oura's got a lot of press in terms of the fitness tracking and the biometrics category. So what they're saying now is that they can actually measure somebody's resilience. And from what I'm seeing in the article, it basically says that there's this new feature that measures how quickly you recover from a stress state to go back to your baseline. And one of the examples that they used of one of the factors that they would measure is how quickly your heart rate stabilizes from spiking up due to a fight or flight response in a stressed state to back down to your normal baseline. And so one of the things their head of science said is that if you're giving a talk on a big stage, you would expect to see your heart rate going up. Your heart rate variability might drop, your hands might get a little sweaty. You see all these physiological changes happening, and those are good changes, right? He's right. Those are all normal physiological changes due to stress, and those are, I guess, the things that the Oura Ring does measure. And he says, but then right after your talk is over, you're able to just come back. Your physiology can recover, your heart rate drops, and that happens very quickly. that's resilience. So yes, absolutely, I have no problem with the definitions and what he's talking about. Resilience is about how you can recover from stressful situations. My problem with this, and it's not even a real problem that's shown up yet, I think the potential problem is that with all of the gamifying of health and with the tracking of having all of these numbers, this becomes another stressor that you have to worry about. So now, if I am not as resilient as I think I should be based on the statistics that I have from my Oura Ring, or maybe it shows that my resilience has dropped over the past couple of days, maybe that becomes another stressor that makes it harder for me to bounce back, because now I'm aware of how I feel like I'm falling short, or am I not taking well enough care of myself, and it becomes something else that I need to measure up to, another expectation that I set for myself to be as resilient as I can. And this became a thing with like Fitbit step tracking where people have competitions and stuff. I would hate for your level of resilience to be something that you start comparing to other people and becoming another source of comparative value of, oh, I'm not as resilient as this person. I'm a huge proponent of biofeedback, where you're using the signals that you get from your body to be able to change things, to be able to recognize that. And a simple example is just noticing how quickly or slowly you're breathing. And then as you pay attention to that, then you also find that you have control over how quickly or slowly you breathe. And that can induce a relaxing response for yourself just by paying attention to that. My concern is that having all of this information available becomes more harmful at a certain point, because it's almost an information overload, and it becomes too much about I have to be more resilient rather than what can I do in this moment to be resilient. The final topic I want to talk about today is these 988 call centers. So 988 was an initiative rolled out by the Biden administration in July of 2022. And this was to replace the old suicide hotline and became more of a catch-all mental health crisis hotline. So you can text in to 988, you can call in. I think there is maybe an online chat version. I think they also released something for people who are hard of hearing recently. So it's a huge rollout. It's got a lot of options for people from all kinds of walks of life. And they have spent over $1 billion on rolling this out nationally now. And since its rollout date of July 2022, they've reported helping or serving 7 million plus people. So not an insignificant amount. But the dark side of what ABC revealed in this story is that these call centers are severely understaffed and undertrained. And that can have huge implications for the service that this entire national program is able to provide to people who are in their most vulnerable states of mind. So this story talks about in multiple states, 1/3 of workers left their job within 1 month of taking their first call. So you're talking about going through training, investing money in training somebody, and then within a month, they're burned out, can't come back to work. One person that they interviewed said even at peak hours, there were times when it was just them and a colleague in the call center and trying to field all the different calls that were coming in. This is at peak hours. And so they were originally signed up for 8-hour shifts, and sometimes because of understaffing issues, that stretches out to 12-hour shifts and things like that. And all of those things are leading to even more attrition for the staff who do stay on and are now covering for other people's shifts and not having enough help and support in their roles. And so the government agency overseeing this is SAMHSA. This is the government's oversight over mental health in general and substance abuse. And they kind of set the agenda for what trainings need to include for people who are onboarded with 988. And so there's a discrepancy between what SAMHSA says people need to be trained in order to work at these call centers and what's actually being provided. One of the examples is that SAMHSA mandates that there needs to be trauma-informed care training for anyone who works at 988, and Vibrant, the company that actually administers the trainings, doesn't actually provide any modules on trauma-informed care. And so it becomes up to the states individually to add in those supplemental trainings that are supposed to be required in the first place but aren't covered in the basic onboarding process. What I didn't realize is that people who work at these centers aren't all licensed professionals. There are some who are certified, there are some who have extensive history in behavioral health and that kind of thing, but you're not talking about all master's degree level clinicians who are working at these call centers. And so this becomes one of those cases where I don't often lean on like, oh, I did the schooling, I did the internship and the residency, all of that stuff, as like an I'm better than you kind of thing. I think there's a lot of benefit to peer and community support and things like that for people who are maybe less trained in this specific thing. But when it comes to repeated crisis situations piled on top of each other, piled on long hours, and being undertrained too, this is where you need to have a lot of that extensive experience that comes through an internship or a residency, or also just a training to deal with the vast array of different needs that you might come across that a couple hours of training is not going to cover. Like one of the people interviewed for the story talked about that there were repeat aggressive callers who I guess just needed to vent or something, but were not interested in looking for feedback, not interested in looking for solutions. They were just angry and wanted to be angry at somebody. And so that can definitely take a toll on somebody. And that's not to say that wouldn't take a toll on me if I had to deal with that all the time, but also that I've had the training, I've spent the time in supervision and in residency working out how do I deal with that? How do I cope with it? How do I leave it at the office when I'm done for the day? So that's where I do think that this understaffed and underserved situation could really be cycling on itself, where you have relatively undertrained people who are dealing with these vast array of problems, people calling in at high volumes, maybe not even wanting solutions or help, and they just want to be mad at somebody. And then some people burn out, and then the people who stick it out, who really care about doing a good job, are stuck doing more work, stuck fielding more calls, all of that, and them gradually burning out. And then this ends up leaving a gap in service for the people who need crisis intervention the most. So I'm not quite sure what the response should be. I think there's a place for more intensive training. I think one of the standards that was mentioned in this article was just a 30-hour training, or some of the modules are just online, like those ones that you breeze through at work that are sent to you by HR, where you just keep clicking next, and it's just like, it's just reading stuff off of an online page that might not get super detailed. You might not get a whole lot of intensive in-person experience with the situations that you might be running into. So I think there's a place for more specific training that would prepare people for what they're going to get into. Maybe role playing, shadowing, things like that, that might actually give a fair representation of the work that's going to be expected of them. And I do think at the outset that would be more expensive. Obviously, you're investing more time into training and money into higher quality trainings. But my hope would be that that would offset as you have to train fewer people because fewer people are leaving or surprised at the workload that they are running into. I do think if there's something built into the benefits package for these workers to have counseling themselves, I think that could be of great benefit. One of the SAMHSA reports from 2022 said that a lot of the workers questioned whether they are competent, whether they are capable, and that sense of questioning your own ability to be effective, a sense of failure or inability to make a change, is definitely associated with burnout. And so providing counseling maybe for those people who are working at the front lines of these mental health crises could be really valuable investments for making sure that they can continue doing the important work that they're doing. But no, I think it's a great idea in terms of having a catch-all crisis line so people have a simple number that they can remember to call when things look their bleakest. And I do appreciate ABC for covering this story because this shows one of the gaps in our mental health system, where there's just a convergence of a lot of desperate situations in terms of not having enough workers, not having well enough trained workers, having a lot of people who are struggling with a lot of different things, and that all just coming together to form a really tricky situation that there's no easy solution to. So for anyone who does work on the front lines as a crisis worker, maybe not specifically with 988, but definitely those people, anyone who does crisis intervention, thank you so much for your work. That's amazing. And I don't know that I could do that full time. So huge props to you. I hope you get the support that you deserve and feel like you need in these situations, because this does take a toll on people who are caring for people in that way. Well, everyone, thank you so much for tuning into this mental health breakdown. I hope you appreciate the news stories that we're discussing and the analysis that we're doing on them. Please like and subscribe. That helps the channel to grow, helps us to create more content just like this for you all. And also when you subscribe, you stay up to date with all of our new videos coming out. So thank you for checking out this video. I'll see you all next time.